Sahanau bhunaktu Saha viryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram Antaryascha Bahir Vidhutatimiram Jyotirmayam Shashvatam Sthanam Prapya Virajate Vinamatam Ajnanamunmulayan Pashyan Vishwamapi Damulasatiyo Vishwasya Pare Paraha Tasmai Shri Ramanaya Loka Gurave Shokasya Hantre Namaha. We'll chant verses 1 to 9. Karturajnaya. See if you can sit next to someone who has a book. Kim param karma tajjadam kriti mahodadau patana karanam phalam shashvatam gati nirodhakam Ishwararpitam nechaya kritam chitta shodhakam mukti sadhakam kaya vangmanah karyamuttamam pujanam japaschintanam kramat jagata ishadhi yukta sevanam Ashtamurti bhreteva pujanam Uttamastavat uchamandataha Chittajam japa dhyanamuttamam Ajadharaya srotasasamam Saralachintanam viralataparam Bhedavanat sohamityasau Bhavanabhida pavani mata Bhavashunya sat bhavasustitihi Bhavanabalat bhaktiruttama. Okay, we've completed till verse 9. So where were we? We were on Bhakti Yoga. And the 3 sadhanas for Bhakti Yoga are Puja, Japa, Chintanam or Dhyanam. And when we talk about Dhyanam, that Dhyanam is supposed to be Sarala and not Virala. Sarala means unbroken. Virala means broken. So ideally it should be unbroken. How? Like the flow of ghee or the flow of milk you can take, and like the effortlessness of a river. And then to even have that dhyanam or that contemplation become deeper, we move from contemplation on duality to contemplation on non-duality. That I am that. And slowly when the thought gets deep enough, then that focus turns into absorption, or what we call bhava shunya, where there's no thoughts. So that thoughtfulness becomes thoughtlessness. That mindfulness becomes mindlessness. And we become one with the object we are contemplating upon, which is sadbhava. Sadbhava sustiti. So that we saw last time. Now today we're going to move forward to verse number 10. Okay, so I'm going to chant verse number 10 and you can repeat after me. Hritstale manah swastata kriya. Bhakti yoga bodhascha nishchitam. Together. Hritstale manah swasthata kriya. Bhakti yoga bodhascha nishchitam. So earlier we have described karma yoga and bhakti yoga. And ahead, we're going to describe Ashtanga yoga and Jnana yoga. So this verse comes like in the middle. And what it's saying is the goal of the four yogas, Karma yoga, Bhakti yoga, Ashtanga yoga, and Jnana yoga, the goal is Hritsthale Manaha. Means that mind, that Manaha, Swasthatha, abidance of that mind in the heart. Abidance of the mind in the heart, that is the goal of Kriya, which stands for Karma Yoga, Bhakti, Bhakti Yoga. Yoga here stands for Ashtanga Yoga, and Bodha stands for Jnana Yoga. This is Nishchita, this is determined. So it has been ascertained that the goal of the path of action, devotion, Ashtanga yoga, and knowledge is the abidance of the mind in the heart, or the abidance of the mind in one's own true nature. So, in other words, what is the goal of all spiritual practices? Abidance of the mind in the self, in that self, in the Atman. And that is what we call rest. Rest. If you think about all of the paths, all of the paths are taking us to a place of rest, to a state of rest. So I'll share with you this one story and you get the idea of where we're supposed to end up. There was this one, I might have told you this, but it's a very good point to show in this verse. There was somebody who was visiting a monastery, and he was very excited to go to the monastery because new monastery had come up and he wanted to go to each space. He wanted to visit every single space of the monastery. So the monk was there and showing him around, and he said, welcome, this is our entrance, this is our garden. And this person said, what do you do there? He said, well, we plant all our vegetables so that we eat, organic vegetables. And welcome, this is our kitchen. What do you do there? This is where all of us get together and we cook. And this is our reception area. What do you do there? This is where we welcome everybody. Now that visitor saw something on top that resembled a temple. And he said, what is that? And the monk just ignored him. They pretend he didn't listen. He said, come, let me show you the library. And he said, well, what do you all do here? He said, well, we study, and let me show you the rooms. This is where we live. But what about that? What about that? And the monk ignored him. He said, okay, now let me show you, a hall where discourses take place. And he says, okay, how many people come? What do you all do? He says, well, we study and we discourse and we learn from each other. But what do you do there? What do you do there? Why won't you take me to that place? And he kept pointing to the temple. Why won't you take me there? And so the monk looked at him. He said, every place that I'm showing you, you're asking me, what do you do there? What do you do there? What do you do there? I cannot take you to the temple. Because in the temple, we don't do anything. The temple is a place of being. It's not a place of doing. Temple is a place of being. It's not a place of doing. And that's why I cannot take you there. So the goal of all spiritual practices is to help us to realize that our nature is one of being. It's not of doing. It's one of being. And only in being is there true relaxation. If we take Karma Yoga, all these paths, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, they're giving us a glimpse of that rest and a glimpse of that being. But Jnana Yoga is that which shows us our nature of truly being. So we take Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga consists of two practices. One is Ishvara Arpana Buddhi, offering ourselves to a greater cause. And second is Prasada Buddhi, accepting whatever the results are as prasad. In the heights of Karma Yoga, or the yoga of action, there is a flow state. There's a flow state because we're so inspired by the action. It's for a greater cause, so we're so inspired by it. And we're not hankering over what's going to happen. We're not worried about what the results are. We're just completely in the present. And we lose ourselves in the action. There's a self-forgetfulness. We just forget who we are. There's no two things. There's no subject-object duality. There's no subject-object duality. We're just completely flowing. Like an athlete would get lost in a sport, or like a dancer would get lost in their music, or a speaker would get lost in their speech. There's no more subject-object duality. There's no semblance of space. There's no semblance of time. It's just flowing. And so in Karma Yoga, the peak of Karma Yoga, the goal of Karma Yoga is to get to this place of rest, where you are no more the doer. It's just being. This is where we get a glimpse of that, a glimpse of non-duality beyond any time, beyond any space. We might not get into this flow state all the time, but we have a glimpse of it. What happens when we cross off something in our to flow list? Not to-do list, to flow list. What happens when you cross something off? You feel peace, right? Why? Because there's no subject-object duality. There's no I need to do this and I need to do that and I need to go there. It is just that subject-object duality has completely dissolved. And that's why there's that moment of rest. There's a moment of rest there. So Karma Yoga is to get us to that place of rest. Now if we think of Bhakti Yoga, what are the practices of Bhakti Yoga? We saw Puja, Japa, Chintanam. And in that Chintanam, Dhyanam, in that contemplation on Bhagavan, on that deity or on the self, we get absorbed into the self. So again, there's no more subject-object difference. It's no more I am praying to this deity or I am contemplating on this deity. We get completely lost in that deity. It's called Bhava Samadhi. This is where our great saints and sages, they just get completely lost in who they're contemplating on. Like we have Mirabai or Surdas Ji or Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa Ji. When they contemplated on their deity, they got completely absorbed in that. And that was their place of rest. It was their place of rest. And we were wondering, well, what if we don't have this Bhava Samadhi? What is a place of rest for us? You know, once in a while when you go to a really nice kirtan and you're singing bhajans, and but because the spirit is so beautiful, so wonderful, you close your eyes and you just get lost in that. That is rest, because there's no more subject-object duality. So in Bhakti Yoga, the goal is also to get to that place of complete rest. And mind you, when we are in rest in Karma Yoga and in Bhakti Yoga, we come out completely rejuvenated. We don't need to sleep. We come out completely rejuvenated. When you are lost in a kirtan, you don't come out exhausted. You come out all refreshed, right? Now let's look at Ashtanga Yoga, the path of yoga with 8 limbs, and this is the yoga of meditation. The goal of Ashtanga Yoga is samadhi, and we're going to see that when we discuss Ashtanga Yoga. Again, samadhi is absorbing the mind onto the self, and that is a place of complete rest, where you're just there, you're abiding in your true nature, in who you are. There's no subject object movement. There's no I have to do this, I have to go there, there's none of that. It's complete rest. And that we might not go into such a deep samadhi, but I'm sure we've all experienced shavasana in a yoga class, where you're lying down and for a moment in shavasana you lose yourself. You lose yourself. There's that one state of just complete rest. So the goal of Ashtanga Yoga is to get to this place of rest. Now what is Jnana Yoga's goal? Jnana Yoga is to tell us that we are rest. We don't need to get to a state of rest because our Atman, our self, is ever at rest. So in Jnana Yoga, we discover that our true being is peace, it is rest, it is relaxation. So even if we're in a complete place of chaos, like the New York City subway, there is rest. There's absolute rest because we know that Atman is of the nature of rest. And the goal of this knowledge is not so that we always get into samadhi, or we always go to a kirtan and lose ourselves, or we always get to a flow state. No, the goal is not that. The goal of knowledge is that we realize that we are completely rest. And so whether things are moving, not moving, whether things are flowing, not flowing, we always are at peace. Karma Yoga gives us a glimpse of that through the flow state. Bhakti Yoga gives us a glimpse of that through that Bhava Samadhi. Ashtanga Yoga gives us a glimpse through Nirvikalpa Samadhi. But Jnana Yoga gives us that full-blown experience as what is called Sahaja Samadhi, whereby we are always completely at rest. This is the goal of all paths. Because if you think about it, this is what we are seeking. Every day we are just seeking for a place of rest, isn't it? In Chandogya Upanishad, there's a beautiful example of a bird that's tied to a pole. A bird that's tied to a pole, and the bird keeps trying to fly away from the pole. Fly away, fly away, fly. And it flutters its wings like anything, and it gets so exhausted trying to fly north, south, west, east, trying to fly all over the place. It gets exhausted. Finally, it gets so drained that it realizes, oh my goodness, I'm actually tied to the pole. Why don't I just go there? And it finds its place of rest. The same with us. The more we're going outside to pursue the world, the more we're going outside to gain something, we're going further and further away from that pole. We're getting into the subject-object duality. I want this, I want to do that, I want to go here, I want to go there. And the minute we are in this subject-object duality, we get exhausted. And that's why everybody is exhausted. Everybody will say, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm drained, I'm stressed. Because we keep going outside. The more we go outside, the more we're going to be stressed. the more we go outside of ourselves, we will be stressed. There will never be peace in this kind of doership, in this desiringship, in this enjoyership, in this subject-object duality. There will not be peace there. But the closer we get to ourselves, what we will find is absolute relaxation. Absolute relaxation. I'll read to you a verse from Ashtavakra Gita, and then we'll talk about how we can attain this state, right? He says, Ayasat sakalo dukhi, nainam janati kashchana. All people are tired due to exhaustion, due to going outside. But how is a wise person? Vyapare khidyate nimishe shon me shayor api. Nimishe shon me shayor api. For the wise person, even the opening and closing of the eyelids is effort. They don't want to take that effort. What does this mean? When we realize who we are in complete relaxation because we know we are complete. We don't need anything to complete us. So it doesn't mean that the one who has realized the self comes to a standstill and is always sitting down in samadhi and always contemplating on divinity. No. The one who has realized the self can do, just is in their natural expression. But they don't have the pressure of doing something to complete themselves. They don't have the pressure of attaining something to make themselves feel good. They don't have the pressure of reaching a goal so that they pull themselves higher. They don't have that pressure because they have the pleasure of just being as they are. They're already full. They're already complete. So even if they engage in action, it's without the pressure. It's without the pressure of expectation or the pressure of doership, because whether there's success or failure, it's okay. They're already complete. And because they engage in action with such relaxation, all the actions that come out of them are beautiful. They're divine. They're so soothing, they're so calming, they're so divine, and they are a bundle of joy. If it happens, okay. If it doesn't happen, okay. Because there's that completeness, fulfillment already within. So if the children turn out like this, okay. If they don't turn out like this, okay. It's okay because they have their own dharma. They have their own vasanas. They'll go their own path. It's okay. This is just a field. This is just a field, and we are all players. We are all actors in this field. So in this way, the goal of all spiritual paths is to help us to realize we are that true self, which is that ultimate state of peace and rest. Karma Yoga helps us to get a glimpse of this through being in the flow state and just losing ourselves in the action. Bhakti Yoga helps us to get a glimpse through sitting down quietly and merging with our Ishta Devata. Ashtanga Yoga helps us to get a glimpse by Nirvikalpa Samadhi. But these are all glimpses because they're temporary. Jnana Yoga, or the Yoga of Knowledge, helps us to get that abidance in this state. That no matter what happens, I'm okay. And I'm absolutely at rest. So what is this telling us? This is telling us that in our life, this is a journey, a spiritual journey. So we might not find that we are able to abide in ourselves as a place of rest just right away, because we're all on a journey. But what we can do in our lives is make rest stops. Rest stops. Not pauses, stop. Because in the stop sign, we don't stop, we pause. Huh? In the don't walk signal, we run. So here I'm using it very carefully. Rest, stop. We have to take these stops. Just stop. Just stop. Every day, at least 3 times, just stop. Stop. Take a break. Just be with yourself for some time. Even if it's 2 minutes, even if it's 3 minutes, even if it's just watching your breathing, just stop. Just take a break. Take a break so that when you go into something, you're more refreshed, you're more full, you're more whole. Unnecessarily, we're going about doing too many things, getting involved in too many things, going to too many places. For what? All that we actually need to do is get rid of this subject-object duality, and we will find complete rest. People like to take alcohol or to take certain substances because in those states, there's no subject-object duality. It's ceased. So they go to rest that way. But that's a very tamasic way of resting. If we want to rest, the only way to rest, a sattvic way to rest and to get rejuvenated is through these practices. Through karma, through bhakti, through Ashtanga yoga. Get to a place where there's no subject-object duality. It's not surfing different channels. I want to relax, so let me surf all the channels on my, TV, or let me scroll through all of these videos. That's not rest. We come out of that and we're more agitated than ever. So what I'm asking all of us to do is take rest stops, where you're just being. Because your nature is being. Your nature is not doing. It's not running. It's not getting exhausted. It's not going through all of these things. Your true nature is being. So take those stops, rest stops, and just be. And this will become evident, how we are that self that slowly becomes evident the more quiet the mind becomes. The more that we go within, this becomes more evident in our spiritual journey. This verse is clear? Yeah? Any questions on this verse before I move to the next verse? No? Okay. Yeah.
When you were saying, like your child, you just have to accept what happens, but at the same time, as a parent, you kind of do want to push them a little bit, right? Or how do you kind of reconcile these two things?
See, there's a pressure parent and there's a pleasure parent. Okay. Now, the pressure parent is constantly hovering over the child, telling them, you have to do this, and you have to do that, and you have to do this. And the child doesn't like that. At some point in time, they'll backlash and be like, I just don't want it. I'm done. I'm so tired, right? But there's a parent who knows when to push and when not to push. This is what we have to do, right? We don't actually have to push all the time. What we need to do is we need to work on ourselves, be so inspiring that they themselves want to be better. That is actually the best way. The best way is that we work on ourselves, we make ourselves better, we make ourselves so inspiring, so uplifting, so amazing that the child looks at the parent and says, wow, I want to be like that. But how is parenting nowadays? We're not working on ourselves, and then we want to work on our children. It's going to fail. It's going to cause pressure to the child, and it's going to cause pressure to you also. Because they don't want to do it, because they say, my parents not doing it, why should I do it? They keep telling me all the time. Right? But when a child sees how their parent is, that their parent is so inspiring, so uplifting, so dynamic, the child keeps seeing that and says, wow, I need to raise myself up now. I need to also, it comes, the child feels it from inside that I should also do something. I should also be like that. It came to you. So if we try to guide others this way, then we will be a little bit more relaxed. We always, whenever we want to guide people, we always first have to guide ourselves and lift ourselves higher. Only then people will be inspired to be lifted by us. Otherwise, they're going to be so turned off. So that's why there's a relaxation. There's no pressure there. No pressure. Imagine you if you were raised by an ideal parent. Just imagine, and every time you saw your parent was just amazing, able to respond appropriately in all situations. How would you feel? Something different, right? Versus being raised by a parent who's always telling you, do this, do your homework, do this, do that, right? It's the same way. So we have to keep thinking like that. And in spirituality, it's always about working through inspiration, not through force. Working through love and not through force. Because force may last for a short time. And in some cases, we might need to use a little bit force when they're going too much out of hand. But working through love lasts a long time. And it lasts a lifetime. So bring this sense of relaxation. It's okay. And if they have to fall, if they have to fail, if something crazy has to happen, it's not the end of the world. They don't all need to go to the Ivy League school or to this college. They don't need to all do that. You know, the kids, it's the parents who are competing with other parents. That's what's happening. The parents are competing with other parents that these, you know, my friends' parents, my friends' kids are going to this school, so my kids also have to go to. Don't put that pressure on the children. That is a love for the ego of the parents. That is not a love for the child. Right? That's another thing. We have to just love as they are. Enjoy how they're blooming. Enjoy how they're growing. In the midst of how they're growing, we're so busy thinking about they have to get into this college or school. No, not necessary. So in that way, we can be more relaxed. Yeah? Does that answer? Any other questions about this rest verse? Okay. I know there's this quote, if I rest, I rust, right? Now that is in the beginning of spiritual stages, when they have to get us out of the tamasic stage of mind. But later in spirituality, as we progress, from rest, all beauty comes out. No beauty has come from a tired, exhausted, drained, pressured mind. The most beautiful pieces of art and poetry and music, they all come from a state of rest. Your most beautiful insights come from a state of rest. They don't come out of pressure. And that's why when they have at work, they have brainstorm session. It's a complete wrong way to go about it. Everybody's mind should be at rest. Slow down, then all beauty will come. This is how we're meant to live life. Yeah? Okay. So now we're going into Ashtanga Yoga. Now we're going into the third yoga through verse number 11. But before we go to verse number 11, I'm going to just give a brief introduction of what Ashtanga Yoga is. Just so we understand, because then once we have this idea, then the other verses will make sense. They'll flow seamlessly. Ashtanga Yoga, again, yoga means uniting with the higher. Uniting with the higher through what? Ashtanga. means 8 limbs, through this path with 8 limbs. And what's the culmination of the limb? The culmination of the limbs is samadhi or meditation. So uniting with the higher through meditation. So when people say, I'm going for a yoga class, please know that there's 8 limbs for yoga. That yoga asana is not to look good and to lose weight and to de-stress. That yoga asana is to go into samadhi. It's actually much deeper than that, right? It's really not about just looking good and feeling physically great. It's not that. There's so much depth to our scriptures. And before we even do those yoga asanas, there are prerequisites required. Huh? So Ashtanga yoga is the path that unites us to the higher through samadhi using this approach of 8 limbs. That's what it is. So what are these 8 limbs? You will see in your book, they are enumerated there. Yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. So we go one by one. Sometimes in Sanatana Dharma, they ask, well, you don't have any, do you have any rules of how to live? It seems so lax. Sanatana Dharma is so lax. You practice however you want to practice. No, that's not true. We have 4 paths. And each of our lives has to be a blend of these 4 paths. Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. And in our lives, one path will be predominant, depending on the state of our mind. If our mind is more action-oriented, Karma Yoga. If it's more devotion-oriented, Bhakti Yoga. If it wants to do physical action and meditation, Ashtanga Yoga. If it wants to do self-inquiry, Jnana Yoga. So we are very clear in Sanatana Dharma that we have these 4 paths. And this is how we better our lifestyle. So here in Ashtanga Yoga, within it, there are 10 rules prescribed for spiritual practice. And they're called yamas and niyamas. So first we'll go to yama. So yama, these they harmonize our relationship with others. So they're grouped, yama and niyama. Yama harmonizes our relationships with others. The first one is called ahimsa, or non-violence, non-injury. I'm sure you've heard all of these terms before. So we'll just look at them briefly. Ahimsa. There's this saying, ahimsa paramo dharmaha, right? Ahimsa is the highest dharma. Now, what does ahimsa mean to us? Non-violence, non-injury, what does that mean to us? It doesn't mean don't hurt anybody. Because sometimes when we, by mistake we step on, maybe a ant or something like that, by mistake we do that and we don't even know, right? Or we eat vegetables. We eat vegetables and we pluck those vegetables out of these trees, out of these flowers. We pluck them. So that's violence. So what does ahimsa mean? Ahimsa means live life with the least amount of violence possible. With the least amount of violence possible. And violence, or action for that matter, has 3 ways which it expresses: through the body, through speech, and through the mind. So when we say through the body, first we'll go from the grossest to the subtlest. Live life with the least amount of violence possible. What does that mean for us as seekers? So as seekers, with the body, then our diet has to also be one with the least amount of violence. When we eat non-veg, all of these things, what's actually happening is we're causing violence to those animals. Those animals are being sacrificed for our own pleasure, and then we eat that. And we're not only that, But the emotions, all the emotions that the animals are feeling, that's coming to us. So at that time when the animal is being sacrificed or slaughtered, whatever it is, that animal is feeling fear. That emotion is coming to us. So it's not only about injuring their lives, it's also taking all of those emotions and keeping it with us. Least amount of violence in the body also means the way we interact ourselves with others, and the way we walk, the way we put things. You know, we don't slam things down or slam the doors or stomp so hard. We're very careful with the way we do things, because even in this, there is Bhagwan in it. There's divinity in everything. That's what we believe. So we don't stomp or throw things because there's divinity in it. And even keeping the last option as fighting. And this is seen in the Bhagavad Gita. You know, many people will ask, in the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna tells Arjuna to fight. That's right, he does tell Arjuna to fight, and Arjuna should fight. But only after they try to do all possible things to make peace with Duryodhana. So they tried to do all possible things to make peace, and as a last resort, they had to fight. So they fought because they had to uphold dharma. So when one has to uphold dharma, after exhausting all possibilities of peace, they have to fight, then they should fight. And that is actually ahimsa. That is actually ahimsa, because we are preventing adharma from prevailing. If they did not fight, then more adharma would prevail in society. So ahimsa at the body level means causing the least amount of harm to other people with the way I am living through my body. What about ahimsa through speech? Now, speech is a very big thing nowadays, because in a matter of seconds, everybody can know what we're going to say. If we post it on Twitter, or it's not Twitter anymore, it's X. Right? We post it on X, or we post it on Instagram or something like that. It just goes a really, really, really long way. Speech is such a powerful method. It can inspire, it can make relationships, but it can also break relationships. I'm sure you know the story of the man who had a son, and he had a son who had an anger problem. Son had an anger problem, didn't know how to control his anger. So his father told him, every time you get angry, you put a nail on the fence and you hammer it. Every time you get angry, go out and do that. Go out and do that. And so his son kept getting angry, and he kept doing that, and gave him some relief. And then after some time, you know, the father was guiding the son and said, you know, do you really think it's worth it to be angry? Do you think, you know, all of these things are really worth it for you to just lash out on everybody? How about now try not to be angry? And every time you don't get angry, whatever nail that you hammered in, you take it out of the fence. And so the son said, I'm going to try. And every day what he started to do was he held his anger and he took out the nail from the fence. Whatever nails he hammered in, he started taking out the nail from the fence. He started taking them out. And after a week, he said, you know, Dad, I feel much better. I feel much better, but there's one thing. I looked at the fence and I can still see the holes. The holes are still there. And the dad said, well, did you ever think that's going to go away? When you get angry at someone, it's going to stay. That doesn't go. You can hold your anger, you can stop it. But once we say something hurtful to someone, it doesn't go away. It goes straight to their heart. And we're sending that vibration to the whole environment. Because everything is a vibration. So ahimsa means just being careful of what we say and how we say it. Sometimes Even when we're texting and typing, we put all caps and exclamation point and all this anger emoji, all of those things we put. It goes straight to that person's heart. When we are careful about how we speak, that is called ahimsa, causing the least amount of harm with the way we speak to other people. In New York City, we have so many people that talk to themselves. It's natural, yeah? Right? It's like a natural, normal thing. Even if we have to talk to ourselves, at least let it be ahimsa talk. Ahimsa talk. Let it be least amount of violence. Why unnecessarily we want to put that vibration out in the world? Then ahimsa at the level of thoughts is not to think bad about anybody. Now this is harder, very, very hard, because sometimes you're like, oh, that person drives me crazy, that feeling will come. But just know that that person is also Bhagavan. That person is also trying to teach me something. I need to learn what that person is trying to teach me. Let me be patient. Let me be patient. Let me be patient. And pray for that person. Just I pray for that person. Send that person good vibrations. Because believe it or not, when you think of a person and you send them good vibrations, it reaches that person. And when you send them bad vibrations, it reaches that person. It does reach. It does reach, because we are all part of one big total mind. And that's why, I shared this example before, that you're on your phone and you're just thinking of someone and immediately they call. So how did that happen? That happened because that vibration went out. It didn't happen because you called them physically. The vibration went out. When they say, go to this temple and pray for me, you pray for that person. That vibration will reach that person. It will reach. When we do a sankalpa, when we go for puja, when we pray for people, it does reach those people. So even with our thoughts, remember, we are reaching people. So least amount of violence, even in our thoughts. Even in our thoughts. It's called ahimsa. Now we look at satya. Satya means truthfulness. Truthfulness. Now truth is something very important, because this tells us how to live our life. You see, before, years ago, nobody had contracts. There were no contracts. There were no agreements. There was no signing this and signing that. There's no RSVP. There's no follow-up. Nothing. Because why? Because people's words had weight. If they said, I will come, it means I will come. You didn't need to follow up. No need reminder. No need to send a message. I will come means that person will show up in your doorstep. That's it. And if the person said 10 years from now, I will give you back this land, that means 10 years from now, they will give back that land. There did not need to be any contract, no court case, no this, no that, nothing. Because everybody had the value of satya. Their words had weight. And so when a person's words had weight, when they said something, you and I believed it. We didn't doubt it. But now we're living in a day and age where all words are weightless. There's no trust in anyone's words. And that's why there's so much paperwork. Sign this, sign that you will do this, sign that you will do that, sign that you... There's so much paperwork that even before people get married, they have an agreement that if we get a divorce, this will happen. How sad is that? This is the sadness of our society. So our words have lost their weight. And as a result, nobody believes us and we don't believe ourselves. So Satya is simply living a life of truth. That when I say something, I must do it. Even if it's a small thing. Okay? Satya starts with a small thing. Even if it's a small thing. That if I say I will come to this event, show up. And if you can't go, say I can't come. If I say I will do this task by this date, do it. If I can't do it, then say I can't do it. But let our words mean something. That's called Satya. Otherwise, even the kids, they'll say, oh, but mom, dad, you always say that, but never happens. Right? So this is a very important value. In the Mahabharata, in the court of Dhritarashtra, when Bhima said, I am going to kill all of those Kauravas, I'm going to have them killed, right? He just said that. And from that day on, Dhritarashtra could not sleep. Because he knew when Bhima said that, it's going to happen. He knew. What happens when we start being true to our words? In the Yoga Sutras, a very nice thing it says, that we become Satya Sankalpa. Satya Sankalpa is the one, when they say something, it happens. This is how our rishis got their power of word. Because they stuck to their words so truly, so closely, that when they said something, it actually happened. This is like the life of Puja Gurudev. One time, in this place called Siddhabari, it was very barren land, nothing was there. And the winds were blowing like anything. And somebody had given him this property. And so people around said, what are you going to build here? The property is barren, there's no water, the wind's blowing, everything. This cannot be an ashram. This cannot be a place where people will come to. And he said, you install Hanumanji here. Install Pavanaputra Hanuman here. And when you do that, all the winds will stop moving so quickly. They will cooperate because the son of the wind god will now be here. And they installed Hanumanji. And with that, everything became calm all around. Trees, flowers started blooming. Land became irrigated. Ashram grew. And today that's one of our foremost ashrams. And it is because he said, do this, it will happen. It did, because he lived the life of Satya. Right, so I'm gonna stop here. There's more. Imagine, so just to get a spiritual life started, we have to practice these two values fully. Hard, isn't it? But it just goes to show how much alertness we need to have in our spiritual life. Any questions anybody has? No? Okay. So, what are the practices that we need to observe this week? 3 practices I'm going to give. First practice is have rest stops during the day. Have rest stops. Periods in the day where I am just being. You don't need to do anything, just be. Just being. Second is, in terms of ahimsa, if a negative thought comes about somebody, send them a prayer. Don't send them negativity, send them a prayer. It will be better for them, it will be better for you. And third is, try to stick with whatever we say. Just try that. And if you, the best is not to speak. Huh? Don't speak. Instead of I can do it, I'll try, I'll be there. Don't speak. Or just say no. But when we say something, let's try to stick to it and develop that ability of satya. Okay? All right. Let's say the closing prayer. Om. 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 Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.